The Portuguese are known for being very helpful, and one way you could help a student return is by learning the alphabet. But why would you need to learn the alphabet in Portuguese? Well, imagine your name is Siobhan, or your surname is Bake, or even Kowalczyk, and you are now living in Portugal. You wouldn't want to put a Portuguese person in an embarrassing situation of misspelling your name or surname, right? So it's your time to help us. In case we haven't met, I'm Katerina, a language addict, and at the Language Unschool I share out-of-the-box tips to help you understand and be understood in European Portuguese in a fun way. Today I will share how my unschoolers master the alphabet by noticing patterns, and then we'll see how acronyms help you further understand not only the language but the culture as well. Now first, the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. And now let's split the colors in color codings. So we have to start with the vowels, as vogais, because they're the letters that are used the most in any language. Okay, so in Portuguese that is A, E, I, O, U. These are often confused with the A and the I, and it can get confusing between Portuguese and English, but also other languages. So one way to memorize them is by singing a little tune with it. I used to teach this with kids when I was teaching English, and luckily the song is translatable to Portuguese as well. So, A, E, I, O, U, agora és tu. So you normally tell this to a kid, A, E, I, O, U, agora és tu, and they would say the same and point at another kid who would repeat, and so on and so forth. As an added bonus, and if you ever play Scrabble in Portuguese, know that the A in Portuguese, is the vowel that we use the most. The next group is quite important because it has the largest amount of letters, and they all follow the same pattern. They are important because they will show you how most consonants are pronounced in Portuguese. So if you're ever at a loss of how to pronounce a C, you can try this way and see if it works, okay? So listen to them and see if you can notice what that pattern is, and then I'll let you know at the end. B, C, D, G, P, Q, T, V, Z. Completely different story, right? When you group the letters in packs, that makes sense. So all of these, hopefully you could hear what they have in common. In case you haven't, I'm about to let you know. It's the E sound at the end, which, by the way, is the same in English, except the sound is E. So you have B, C, D. In Portuguese, B, C, D. Same thing. Same thing, of course, different sound, but still. Where there is a pattern in English, there will also be, in this case, in Portuguese. The next group has a different pattern. There's less letters, but still relevant. See if you can recognize it for yourself before I let you know. F, L, M, N, R, S. You did? You didn't? It was the E sound at the beginning. So F, R, N, M, S. Of course, I'm emphasizing it here, but hopefully you got it. Now we have three letters that are a bit of loners. They each have their own sound, and they're quite specific to Portuguese. So one is H. I think this changes in every single language that I've learned. It has a different sound. So you simply have to memorize it. So H, H. Certainly if your name or surname include that letter, or your car plate. That's an important letter to know. H. And then this one is important because it's, in some languages will sound like a J, in some letters will sound like a Y. So in Portuguese it's always a J, J. It's called J. And then we have this letter called X. X. HJX. Now the last group I want to bring up is 4 letters. The first 3 do not officially make part of the Portuguese alphabet. And the last one is a letter. It's not a letter with an accent. It is a letter by itself, but it's not included in the alphabet. It's not something we say when we say the whole alphabet. So we have the I'm saying it in English. So we have K, W, Y. These we use because of English influence. For example, words like yoga, we will say yoga. There's a whole discussion whether it's male or female, the word, and some people will spell it with an I. So I, O, G, A. The last letter here in this weird group is the C cedilha, so a Portuguese letter, but something we do not say when we are naming the alphabet. I know that some people, when they move to Portugal, they really practice how to say their número de contribuinte, their NIF numbers, because that's something you're asked on a daily basis, and it's really good you can do that. But how often are you asked to spell your name? Probably not as often, certainly not on a daily basis, but try doing it. I know that for one of the English exams I took years ago, I was advised to practice how to spell my surname, which is quite long, and I did, and to prove it and to make use of it, because I was not asked to spell my surname, I was asked to spell something else, which had a lot of S's and vowels in the middle, so it was quite difficult. CHAMPALIMAUD. There you go. So now we're going to look at 2 different categories. So what in English would be acronyms and abbreviations. So acronyms, Acrónimos, and abbreviations are Siglas. So let's start with acronyms. So these are not super interesting acronyms I came up with, but still they will give you an idea of how letters are pronounced, and it may be an easier way for you to remember the sound of the letters. So since acronyms, by definition, you will read them as words. It's not so much about the name of the letter, but it's more about the sound of the letter. So let's look at some rather boring, but that's what I came up with, examples. PALOP, Países Africanos de Língua Oficial Portuguesa. ONU, Organização das Nações Unidas, which means UN, the United Nations. NATO, this one we cheat, because so in English NATO, we pronounce as NATO, but actually the Portuguese acronym is OTAN. But I don't know, maybe because it doesn't sound as good as NATO, OTAN sounds, it's too nasal. I don't think it's too nasal even for us. SIDA stands for Síndrome de Imunodeficiência Adquirida, which is AIDS. And I remember a funny story about something that is not funny, but years ago, watching soap operas, I remember they would talk about ages. I was like, what the heck is ages? What are they talking about? So if you wanted to add to the list of differences between European and Brazilian Portuguese, there you go. And we have UNESCO. That's, again, a Portuguese pronunciation of UNESCO. So UNESCO. And that gives you an indication that the S before a consonant becomes a sh sound. UNESCO. Now let's look at siglas, abbreviations. So when we actually read each letter individually. DVD, CD, PC, WC. So the word for bathroom in Portuguese is casa de banho. In the north they will say quarto de banho. But WC, it's not super common, but sometimes we do use it. And I think it took me quite a few years to actually learn what it stood for. Water closet, in case you're not a native English speaker and you didn't know. This one I have to put it in context, so let's see if you can guess what it is. Greve de CP, Comboios de Portugal. There was a strike a few months back of trains in Portugal, so CP. PT does not stand for Portugal, it stands for personal trainer, and we simply say PT. So as you can see, a lot of English abbreviations, which we just then pronounce them in a Portuguese way. These two I love, so in case you ever wondered what PSP is in GNR, so PSP is Polícia de Segurança Pública, and then GNR, an interesting thing here is that G is not the name of the letter, but it's the sound of the letter. Often kids at school learn how to say G instead of G, and it stands for Guarda Nacional Republicana. The main difference between the two is that police is not militarized, GNR is, and Police is usually allocated to urban areas, and GNR for rural areas. Finally, we have a mix of Acrónimos and Siglas, which will all help you, I hope, memorizing the pronunciation of the letter X in Portuguese. X. That's the name of the letter, X. However, look at this. Inox. Inox. It's actually an abbreviation for aço inoxidável. In English means stainless steel, inox. And then if you've been living in Portugal long enough and you like to either sell or purchase things secondhand, you will know by now the website OLX. OLX. And if you live in Lisbon or visit often, it could be that you have visited LX factory. LX factory. So we will not say LX factory. The other day I heard someone say that and it took me a moment to realize what the person meant, because it has to be pronounced in a Portuguese way. LX factory. The last one is actually, I consider it a word in Portuguese. It's XPTO. I think I mentioned it in this video. I'm not sure now. So XPTO stands for something that is fancy technology-wise. So you could describe a car being o carro todo XPTO or o telemóvel dele é todo XPTO. So something techy and new. If this has not convinced you of the importance of learning the alphabet in Portuguese, perhaps next time you enter a celeiro shop in Portuguese and you ask for your vitamins and you want to say, desculpe, tem vitamina C ou D de solgar? Maybe then you will think of me and this video. If you happen to doubt that that's how the Portuguese read letters, acronyms and all that, that's fine. Just grab my free Mini-Tuga below and start listening to how real Portuguese people speak. I'll see you next week. Até lá. Eu lembro tão bem daquela professora italiana. Eu lembro que eu não tive aulas com ela, mas por alguma razão um dia falei com ela na universidade, na Nova. Lembro perfeitamente dela dizer, em italiano, en italiano, la A è sempre la è sempre la I è sempre la I, la O è sempre la O, la U è sempre la U. E eu pensava, pois, eu percebo, é que em português o A nunca é sempre o A, o E nunca é sempre o E, o I e o U até que vá lá, e o O certamente que não. É assim, é uma língua complexa, o português, super interessante, e espero que gostem.